Our next topic is all about password manager. So, what exactly this password manager means? Unsay gamit ani niya? And how does it work? To those who are not familiar with this, mo ni siya. Halos tanda na nato siguro diri nag-rely na sa internet. For students, we have these multiple accounts that we've created para sa itong pag-eskwela. Natay CTO Portal account, CTO Gmail account, ug uban pa nga mga accounts. Together with our personal accounts such as Facebook, personal Gmails, and other online accounts. And for that, we have these multiple passwords to remember. Sa kadaghan sa atong mga passwords nga atong pangtiman-an, we tend to do these bad habits of creating a passwords and to our password security. Mga bad habits such as creating a password nga dali ra ma-breach, ang atong mga panggamit nga mga passwords same ra sa mga passwords atong uban nga mga account. And ang pinaka-worst pa jud is that same nako or even kamo nagbuhat sa ning bad habit. Nga ang tanan nga mga accounts nga naka-login sa atong device or sa atong mobile phone kay di na nato i-log out para dali ra ta maka-access. Without thinking sa risk nga if mawala atong phone kay pwede na makuha atong mga details ang personal information. Para malikayan ning inani nga mga risks, IT professionals, computer engineers, ug uban pa nag-develop the software which is called a password manager. So, a password manager is a computer program that allows users to store, generate, manage their passwords for local applications and online services. A password manager assists in generating and retrieving complex passwords, storing such as passwords in an encrypted database, or calculating them on demand. So, kaning password manager guys, mura rin siya database format or a vault wherein anhin na to store atong mga details sa atong mga multiple accounts. Details such as passwords and also our usernames. Para if ever malagin na ta sa atong mga account nga gamiton or if ever nakalimot ta sa atong mga details, aray ra ta mag-refer sa atong password manager. So, mura siya katong karaan nga way nga ato pang isulat sa papel atong mga account para di na to malimtan. Ang naka-advantage ang aning paggamit natong password manager guys is that di na nato need pasag-uhon atong mga passwords atong lain-lain nga mga accounts. Ang kinahanglan ra nato i-remember jud kay ang ato rang master password. So, unsa man ning master password? A master password is a type of algorithm first implemented by Martin Belmont for creating unique passwords in a reproducible manner. It is the key to your encrypted database. This is the only password that you will need to remember, and it is critical that you do not lose or forget this password. So, sa simple nga pagkastorya guys, mao ni ang atong password nga atong gamiton para sa atong password manager. So, maura ni atong need nga remember para maka-access sa atong mga accounts na naasulod sa atong password manager. So, dapat ang ato sang master password is a strong master password. It needs to be truly unique. And you should never use master password or even a variation of it for any other account or application. So, later ato na itakol kung saan na to pag-create of strong passwords nga dali ra na to mahinumduman. There are lots of password manager out there guys. And in choosing a password manager, it is the first decision that you are going to make is to choose either you want a local or a cloud-based password manager. So, unsa man ning local-based password manager? It stores password in your own computer. It keeps password encrypted in your own hard drive. Whereas ang cloud-based password manager kay it stores password in a server somewhere that can be accessed it can be accessed anywhere. So ang pinaka best nga recommended gyud for a local based password manager guys kaya kaning KeePass X and KeePass XC. So unsa man ning KeePass X and KeePass XC? These are the free open source password manager which helps you to manage your passwords in a secure way. You can store all your passwords in one database which is locked with a master key. So you only have to remember one single master key to unlock the whole database. So kaning tulo guys kay pare-parehas ni sila. Nakalahi lang ang ilang version kay nasa siya lain-laing mga features ila sa mga plugins. So as you can see sa itong PowerPoint na sila gamay nga kalahian ra. Ang kanang babaw kay KeePass, kaning ubos kay kining KeePass X. Nakanindot ani nga password manager kay una, this password manager is an open source. So meaning na-release siya under a license. So tanan pwede maka-download, maka-copy sa USB niya. Pwede siya nito i-transfer sa other PC. And second, it is for free. So meaning walay bayranan kung mogamit ka ani. Di pareha sa uban nga mga password managers nga napay monthly subscription and etc. para maka-access ta. And third, it is an end-to-end encryption. Meaning, it is in good security measures while in third party nga maka-access sa imong account kundi ikaw ra. And fourth, it is designed as a cross-platform. So, kanidang KeePass or KeePass X or KeePass XC, this was originally developed by Windows and Linux only. Pero karon ni-adapt na niya sa monoframe. Kaning monoframe kay mo siya kanang software nga pwede magagamit using iOS, macOS, and Android OS or etc. Then lastly, this password manager is a browser integration. So pwede ni siya ma-open in any other browser applications. So to know more about unsa paggamit aning KeePass and KeePass X or KeePass XC, please watch this video guys.
My recommendation for a local password manager is KeePass 2.x and KeePass X. KeePass you can see here. This is the original for Windows and it does actually work on Linux and Mac OS X with Mono. It is free and open source. And there are many forks of it. You can see here KeePass X for Linux and Mac OS X and various other versions here. And also here. This is KeePass X and this is recommended for Linux and Mac, again free and open source. It's a local password manager, so your password or essentially an encrypted database of the information that you save, including your passwords, are saved locally. And this is what it looks like here. So first you need to open a database. So let's open one or create one if you are just starting to use it. There it is, KDB file, open, and then of course we've got the master password that we need to enter in order to decrypt the database, and obviously this needs to be very strong. I'm just entering in here a simple password for the demo. And you can see here that key files are also available, so you could have, for example, an MP3 file that also must be present in order to log in. So say two-factor authentication option. So here we are logged in, right click, and we can add entries in here. So here we go. It also generates a password for us, which you can see here, and it does it based on this and the settings that we have in here. And I'll talk more about what these settings should be in its own section, and then we can save. Then right click, and you can copy the username, copy the password, and paste them into wherever it is that you need. Database settings. We can see here it uses AES 256, SHA 256 to store the master password. The Pro version has other options as well that you can select, but this is perfectly fine. To generate the final 256-bit key that is used for the block cipher, KeePass first hashes the user's password using SHA 256, encrypts the results as default 6,000 times using the AES algorithm, and then hashes it again using SHA 256. I would suggest you change this to something random between 10,000 and 20,000. So that's all good for slowing down the cracking. So as I said, these key files can be used too as an additional factor of authentication. If they are, the hash of the master password is concatenated with the key file bytes, and the resulting byte string is hashed with SHA-256 again. It supports YubiKey for authentication as well, which is good. There are also plugins which you can download and install, which you can see some of them here. With these plugins, it can actually become more than a local password manager. It can actually do cloud syncing. You can see support for Google Drive, Dropbox, and other online storage providers. Use at your own discretion. I'm really only talking about using this as a local password manager. But if you were to sync it or back it up into the cloud using your own servers, that would add an extra layer of mitigation. And of course, because it is encrypted, even though it's stored on Dropbox, for example, Dropbox shouldn't be able to get access to it. But of course, it provides that opportunity and increases the attack surface. So it may be that syncing in the cloud using this is viable for you because you believe that's an acceptable risk. Without this, there is no syncing between devices, obviously, so that can be a problem as you go from device to device, because this is fundamentally a local password manager only. And of course, if you're not doing syncing, and even if you are doing syncing, you should also do backups of the database yourself, a separate backup to the syncing, because the file could become corrupt and then synced, and then the synced file is corrupt, so you need a separate backup, or it could be deleted, and then it's sync deleted. So please do a backup. Obviously, if an attacker is present on your device using a keylogger or other sort of malware, they will be able to capture the master password, which would compromise your database. Optimally, you would want to install this in a virtual machine to provide that extra layer of isolation, or in cubes, like as a separate VM, to just give it that extra isolation. You may even store the file on an encrypted USB or some other form of physical isolation. So that's KeePass and KeePass X.
So, mao to siya ang KeePass X, KeePass XC, which is a local based password manager. And our next topic is all about hardening a LastPass. But before that, let me introduce to you first what is a LastPass. This is one of the best recommendations for a cloud-based password manager. So, a LastPass is a premium password manager that stores encrypted passwords online. So, premium meaning na siya free version, na siya premium version, which is magbayad ka para subscription. Siyempre, na siya kalahian gamay yung free o yung version na premium version. And the standard version of LastPass comes with a web interface but also includes plugins for various web browsers and apps or many smartphones. So once ma-install na nimo siya sa imong PC or sa imong phone, ma-opera ni siya sa imong browser nga gamiton, then pwede na ka maka-access. Then for security, LastPass implemented AES 256-bit encryption with PBKD F2, SHA 256 and salted hashes to ensure complete security in the cloud. So, the good thing about using this LastPass password manager, guys, kay even if cloud-based password manager ni siya, this is a local only encryption password manager. Meaning, ang imong data is encrypted and decrypted at a device level ra. In short, ang data nga na-store sa imong vault So as you can see sa atong PowerPoint, mo ni ang atong LastPass Vault. Kay kaning mga naa sa atong kining LastPass Vault kay wa ni na send sa LastPass server. So ang LastPass itself kay dili ini accessible sa imong account. And to know more about LastPass, palihog ko watch ani nga video guys.
Next, I recommend LastPass as a cloud-based password manager. It provides the most functionality of the password managers we have gone through so far and that I recommend, but it also has the greatest attack surface. This is because it integrates with the web browser and syncs across devices using the cloud, using the LastPass servers. Your private encrypted passwords and data is stored in the cloud on LastPass servers. This makes it much more convenient and easy to use. There's no copying and pasting between password manager and websites when you use this, and you can store every bit of information that you like credit cards, usernames, emails, pins, making it extremely convenient. It's cross-platform for all the major browsers but Edge, but I'm sure that will change soon, including Iceweasel for Debian and portable browsers. This is the login for it here, and the icon in the browser that you get. Let's have a look at the difference because there are premiums and free versions. Premium costs around $12 for the year and free is free. And here are the major differences. With the free version, there's no unlimited syncing across all mobile and desktop devices. That's one of the major disadvantages of the free version. And some of the multi-factor authentication methods are not available. It has lots of competitors in terms of being a cloud-based password manager and indeed just being a password manager. Here we can see KeePass and KeePass X, which we've gone through, and you can see here delivery format of various password managers, cloud. So let me give you a quick demo of this one. So once you have installed it, you're going to get this icon here in your browser. As you install it, you can create an account, or you can create an account here, and then you just have the option to log in with whatever email address you used and an extremely strong password for your master password. We're going to talk about creating strong passwords in this section. So let me log in. I do not have a strong password for this demo. So there we are, we're logged in. This goes red. And we can see all of the various options here. Now let's go on my LastPass Vault. On the free account, you get this kind of annoying advert here. On premium, that is gone, so effectively you can ignore all of that. And here are your various sites that you can log in. You can change the view, so it looks like this, looks like this. It can be in different folders. I'm quite zoomed in here so that you can see, but on a normal monitor, it displays quite well. And so you would try and find somewhere you wanted to log into. So Amazon, that will pop up. Click launch. And that auto logs you into that site. It's not logged me in because that's not the correct username and password. And if you were just browsing around, you would press here, type Amazon, and then just click here and you'd log in. You can edit by clicking on there. You can copy the username, password, URL, and here's edit, delete. Click on edit. You can see we can change all the various information that we've stored about it. Let's go back to the password vault and you can do the same editing here. You can see the password. You can generate a password, and a cool feature, you can auto change the password on sites that LastPass has developed scripting to auto log in for you and change the password for you, all automated. So that's actually pretty good. Go here. You can see we've got the same options here as we have over here. And these are our sites. You can put them into separate folders, each of your different sites. You've got secure notes. So literally, you can just write a note about something. And form fills for automatically filling in forms, credit cards. So let's go over here. Secure notes, we can just add one here. Add whatever we're going to say. You can also have attachments, which is quite good. Form fills, add those. So you can see you can put in the sort of information you want to add into forms. I actually find the form fills and credit storage actually not that great. The functionality is better in other password managers. Share Center, where you can share your passwords and notes with families and friends. And emergency access, what happens if you're incapacitated or die? Well, they have a solution for it here. And then you have account settings here. And there's lots of options and security options here. And you also have preferences, which is another kind of settings. And you've also got more options as well. So there's a settings and options. Preference is a little bit confusing, but there's more settings in here, and we're going to go through some of these in a minute. When you go to websites for which you have a username and password stored, it can auto log in or it can auto populate. You can also get this pop up as well when you come to sites that you have not already saved the username and password, and you can add the details that you enter. So as you go through logging into the sites that you normally log into, you can save those sites, and it pops up with a message asking if you want to save. Or simply you can go on here, type the site that you want, click there, and it logs in for you. It's a zero-knowledge system, meaning LastPass, the company, cannot find out your master password or view the private data that you have stored in this password manager, even though the data is on their servers. This is because the data is encrypted client-side before it is sent to the servers, so they have zero knowledge of what you are storing. But this doesn't mean LastPass couldn't recode it and send an update so they could get your password. But it is, in principle, a zero-knowledge system as we would want it to be. It uses AES 256-bit encryption as we would want. It's got salted hashing, and it uses PBKD F2 SHA-256, which we have talked about and you know is good. By default, during the client-side encryption process, as you can see here, 5,000 iterations are used, and you can customize a number of iterations as well if you want to, which is great, here in account settings and advanced settings. Then server-side to store, they do another 100,000 rounds of server-side PBKD F2 SHA-256 to slow down any attempts to crack the hashes and data if anyone was to get hold of it. It supports a number of multi-factor authentication methods, which you can see here. It's introduced its own LastPass authenticator. You can use Google Authenticator or the Authy app, and we'll discuss more on this shortly. You've got Duo here, and you've also got YubiKey and the rest. So actually quite a lot of two-factor authentication, and there's a Salesforce integration which won't be of interest for home users. The security architecture is well designed. It's just that it's an increased attack surface over the other options that we've gone through. If your adversary is well resourced and the consequences are high, I probably wouldn't use this. I would stick with KeePass. I would stick with something local, not doing cloud sync, not integrated into the browser, or maybe use master password because we want to decrease the attack surface if the consequences are seriously high and your adversary is well resourced. LastPass and any password manager that uses syncing in the cloud and integrates with the browser are simply more vulnerable to attack. So let's consider some of the possible attack scenarios here. So phishing and browser hacking. Imagine you click on a link or you visit a site that is hacked. A message pops up looking like LastPass, looking like the login screen, because that's where it pops up in your browser, and you're fooled into entering your master password. Or a pop-up like this appears. You can get that from visiting a site that's trying to attack you or clicking on the wrong sort of link. An attacker could try to compromise the LastPass servers, which actually has already successfully happened. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. A man-in-the-middle attack is viable too, where the client, this browser, connects to the attacker instead of the LastPass server, and the attacker forwards on the message and the password is relayed in some sort of way. This can defeat two-factor authentication. Also, obviously, if an attacker is present on your device using something like a keylogger or other such malware, the master password would be compromised. Some other negatives: LastPass was acquired by LogMeIn, and the company will be combining the LastPass brand with a similar product called Meldium, which was also acquired by LogMeIn. LogMeIn doesn't have a great reputation at all, not for security, so could make LastPass a no thank you pass if they mess about too much with this product. Currently, it's good, but LogMeIn don't mess it up. As I just mentioned, LastPass servers were previously hacked. The encrypted user vault data was not taken in the incident, but even if the user vaults were taken, because of the hashing, key stretching, and iterations, and as long as people have good, strong passwords, they would be strengthened against cracking anyway. So because of a good security design, even if they are successfully hacked, as long as you have a strong password, you should be good. Your data will not get decrypted. And it's fair to say we will see more integrated cloud password managers like these being compromised as time goes by. It's an absolute certainty they are a prime target. Password managers will be successfully attacked in the wild going forward. Because LastPass is one of the most popular password managers, it is likely to be one of the main targets. And although LastPass was successfully hacked, I wouldn't hold this against them too much. They disclosed the hack in the right way, advised people in the right way, and because of the security design, the data is at minimal risk even when hackers have the encrypted data.
So that's how LastPass works. Then in hardening LastPass, diba, nakakita naman ta nga ang naay mga possible gyapon nga hackings nga mahitabo sa tong LastPass accounts. So in hardening LastPass, guys, we can configure LastPass security. We can configure our LastPass security. So please watch this video, guys.
We can configure LastPass to be more secure than the defaults because the defaults are a balance between security and usability. So first thing is you can use the web version of LastPass. Don't use it. Use the binary version, the plugin version. This is safer. You see here we've got remember password. Never remember the password. Never store the password. Get used to typing it in. If you store it, it's an attack vector. If you don't store it, it's not an attack vector. And in that light, don't use a password reminder. Remember the password yourself, or go old school and write the password down and lock it away somewhere safe that no one will find. And preferably when you write it down, don't put this is a password or that it's a password, preferably no indicator of what it is. With a password manager, there's only this one password that you need, so you simply make it strong and you remember it. So if we go in here, my LastPass vault, down to account settings, and we click on show advanced settings. We've got here reprompt for the LastPass master password. You could enable more granularity here on anything that you think is particularly sensitive. So for example, if you have particularly sensitive secure notes, then make sure that there is a reprompt for the master password. But as a minimum, you want to have it on access and identity. You can set up different identities within LastPass, and if you're going to the step of doing that, then there must be a reason for that separation to require a reprompt of the master password. Use a security email. This is a second email account for critical account notifications. Once you add a new email address here, this means that any sensitive notifications, such as those for account recovery or disabling multi-factor authentication, will be sent to this security email rather than your primary email address. So even if someone gets access to your primary email address, they won't be able to log in to LastPass if you've locked it down with a strong master password, multi-factor authentication, and an obscure security email address. So add one of those in there. Then we've got country restrictions. You want to add a country restriction. If you're not going to be logging in from Afghanistan or China, don't enable access from there. It reduces the attack surface. Not impossible to get around, but still reduces the attack surface. Disallow Tor logins if you're not using it from Tor. These settings should be as you see here. You want this to be set and do not set these. And then this is optional really. Automatically log off other devices when logging in from a different device. For me, I sometimes do log in from two devices at the same time, so I don't check that. But if you don't, then have this checked. Here are the password iterations that we talked about. Now, you want to change this. Set this to something between 10,000 to 20,000, a random number between there. That will make it harder to crack your password, as they will not know how many iterations it has gone through. You've got website auto log off. You shouldn't really be using the website, so you can reduce those down if you wish. And uncheck these, as you do not want to be sending this information and keeping this information. This one if you're concerned about local forensics and you never really want to send any data that you don't know what that data is. Are they doing a memory dump? Will your encryption key be in it? Don't know. So never send data that you don't know what it is. Here we've got the multi-factor authentication options. We are going to talk about multi-factor authentication, so you would want to use a multi-factor authentication method. This really mitigates password cracking. If you can, you want to use a couple of options in case you lose one, like if you have a hardware dongle and you lose it. So you could have a couple of options like YubiKey and Google Authenticator here, or Authy, but make sure you have two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication isn't bulletproof, but is a significant security mitigation against your password being stolen or cracked. If you don't know what two-factor authentication is, we're going to talk about it in a second. But it simply means providing two factors of authentication, a password and something else. Something you know, something you have, something you are all authentication methods. When you're setting up two-factor authentication, it will give you the option to trust the device that you are logged into on. So say, for example, you log in via your desktop, you can trust that device for 30 days, then you don't have to continue doing two-factor authentication. Don't do that. We've got trusted devices and mobile devices. You can restrict account access to only specific mobile devices UUIDs. This is helpful if your two-factor authentication method doesn't work with mobile devices, and is just generally a good idea if you know what mobile devices you're going to be logging in from. So restrict mobile access. Then if we close that, go here, preferences. You want to automatically log out when all browsers are closed and Firefox has been closed for a number of minutes. You really want this set to 0. Once you close a browser, that's it, must log in again. And you want to automatically log out when the system's been idle. Got 15 minutes here, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes should be fine. Let's go to advanced. You want to disable account recovery. This is a little risky because often you may want to recover your account if you forget your password, but it is better if there is no method of recovering your account because you close an attack vector. You simply must remember your master passwords so you do not need to recover it. So this needs to be set like it is so that you are not saving a disabled one-time password locally for account recovery. And if you are ever prompted for the master password unexpectedly, do not enter it. Always think. Reset the browser, clear all history, make sure everything is okay, then log in. So that's LastPass. I do use this myself, plus the others that I've gone through for different security domains. It's a good product from a security perspective, but bear in mind it does have the increased functionality, but it does have the increased attack surface. There are other password managers like this, but this is my preference from a security and functionality point of view. And in that vein, here's another one that you could potentially look at. This is Crypta, which is another cloud-based password manager. It's from SpiderOak, and it uses the zero-knowledge Krypton framework. It looks good on initial impressions, but I haven't had time to really look at it. It stores passwords, credit card data, pins, etc. in the cloud. The zero-knowledge Krypton framework is a thumbs up from a security point of view, but like I said, I've not really looked into it in depth, so that's a potential option as well. And for completeness, other options are available that you could explore. Let me know your experiences with these.
So, mao to mga ways to harden our LastPass account para malikayan na itong mga possible attacks. And a great reminder kung nanagani may something mabantayan sa inyong LastPass accounts, as what the video told us nga dapat ato sa i-refresh atong browser, dayon i-clear na to atong mga history accounts, browsing histories I mean, then open balik sa atong LastPass account. So next topic is all about creating a password that you can remember. So in creating a password that you can a strong password that you can remember, there are 3 properties to consider. First, the difficulty to crack. Second, the difficulty to remember. And third is the difficulty to type. In the difficulty to crack, based upon my research, a 12-character password containing at least 1 uppercase letter, 1 symbol, and 1 number would take 34 years for a computer to crack. But sadly, nowadays, ang mga hackers kay gamit na sa mga advanced software para mapadali ang ilang pag-crack sa atong mga passwords. So, gisuggest nga the longer your passwords, the better. And then, the difficulty to remember. So, a strong password is defined as a password that is reasonably difficult to guess in a short period of time, either through human guessing or use of specialized software. So, it means dili siya dali ma-remember sa bantaw. So, ikaw nga nakasag-o sa imo ra yung password, ikaw ra jud ang makafamiliar ana. So, mura siya kanang silbi ikaw ra jud makaibaw ba. Ikaw ra nakafamiliar kung unsa ta imong password. Then the difficulty to type is using a keyboard layout to create a custom pattern is another strong password idea. So, in this difficulty to type, atong gamiton na itong keyboard layout para ma-create strong patterns. So, strong patterns dili ra ka ng mga simple nga patterns like QWERTY, password 123 nana, dili ra nana. In some websites, in creating a strong password, they typically told us these instructions. So, for example, kana mag-create ang mga website nga gigamitan og PHP nga code or JavaScript nga code. Diba, name upper diha nga use uppercase and lowercase letters. Use numbers, use symbols, use at least 8 characters. So, don't use words from a dictionary. And don't use the same password twice. This is what I've said ganina. So, don't use personal information. So, for example, this password 123 meets all the above criteria. But, kaning password 123, kay in this example, like mga password nga parahinaan ni kay dili na kaayo ni siya gi-advisable sa karon nga panahon kay dali ra gyapon siya ma-breach. Kay as what I've said, hackers nowadays uses advanced nga mga tools or softwares nga kanang mo breach atong mo crack sa atong mga passwords. Then in creating a password in creating a password that you can remember, natay mga simple strategy for creating a memorable but difficult to crack a master password. Mo ni siya. Use a passphrase. So, what exactly a passphrase? It is a sequence of random words and characters strung together to create a password. Then the difference is that a passphrase is a typical longer with at least 20 to 30 characters. So, di na niya gitawag og password. So, gitawag na siya passphrase para the longer imong characters nga nagamit, the longer sad nga the better sad nga password imo ma-create. So, say for example kaning phrase nga my dog's Pedro's birthday is November 19. Dali ra siya mahinumduman kay ipakita kasi mong dog nga nag-birthday siya November 19, so mao naan din mo nga ay mao dito akong password. And the rest of the examples nga naa ni atong PowerPoint. So to learn more about how to create a strong password that you can remember, please watch this video, guys.
So we've talked about what we shouldn't do when creating a password. Now let's talk about what we should do when creating passwords so that they are memorable and strong. And the first thing is we want to move away from passwords. We want to be using passphrases or sentences to increase the length, entropy, and randomness of the password. And when creating a passphrase, I recommend you use a base phrase to start with. Think about poems, lyrics, movie dialogue, songs, things that you know and can easily remember. Something memorable to you, but not ridiculously obvious. Here you can see in front of you, this is a brute force password search space calculator by Steve Gibson. So what do we have here? The sun never sets on the British Empire. Press return there. We've got 42 characters. It's a phrase. We've got uppercase characters, we've got lowercase characters, we're missing digits. So we want to use whatever phrase you come up with as your base phrase, and then you need to add randomness to it. You might want to put it in quotes or put it in brackets or put numbers at the side of it. Maybe change the spaces to another character, but spaces are good, spaces can be used. If they can't be used, you can put something else in there. You need to develop your own method. And we can see here we've got no digit, and because this is a long password, we can use LeetSpeak. So we could change that for a 0, and now we have a pretty easy to remember password. We've got the upper and lowercase letters in a position that is easy to remember, but because it's long enough, patterns aren't that relevant. So here's another one. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That gives us our uppercase, lowercase, gives us our digits, and it gives us our symbols. Every time we add a different alphabet, it essentially gives us that whole new alphabet of characters that could possibly be in here. And you can see this represented as search space depth, where we've got 26 plus 26 plus 10 plus 33. So we've got a base phrase here. 99% of people have poor passwords, and we've added some uppercase characters here. We could maybe add a dot at the end. We could perhaps put it in quotes, creating a long-ish but complex password. And what about a quote from a person, for example? So maybe Bruce Lee. There we go, Bruce Lee, be like water. But we want to have some digits in there, so let's change those for 3s. And there we have a moderately long 28 characters, but still easy to remember. We've worked from our base phrase of be like water, we've added the author of the quote, and as long as it's part of a method that we can remember, it's a strong passphrase. If you speak a language other than English, use that language within the passphrase, as there are much more cracking dictionaries with English words. So foreign words are awesome because they are not within dictionaries. Once the password is random enough but memorable, say like this one, you can also add padding of your own design. So maybe you add something at the end, a total number of characters. So maybe you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what I call padding. It does not matter now that this is a pattern because of the length of your password. For your padding, you can also add something that relates to where the password is being used. And whatever method you use, absolutely do not tell anybody. When you add a reference to the service, if it does ever get cracked, then you know which site got hacked. And as I said, it doesn't matter if these are patterns now, because by this stage, the password should be very complex and long anyway before you're adding the padding. Also important is to think about how easy it will be to type this in and on all your devices, especially mobile phones. You know, if it's your password manager master password and you've got to type it in on your mobile phone and you're using symbols and lots of them that are 3 menus down on your keyboard, that's going to be a total pain. You need to use characters that are fast for you to type. So you need to try it out and then change the password, tweak it until it's one that you can type fast, remember, and is complex. Otherwise it will become just annoying to use that long password, and you may change it to something simple. So maybe you realize that this part of your password is no good for speed, so you just change it for easier padding instead. But hopefully you won't need many of these self-generated passwords like these because you'll be using a password manager. There should only be a few passwords that you need to remember. I'll finish off now by giving you some general tips about passwords. So always change any default passwords. Maybe your router has a default password. Applications of default passwords, must change those, especially if they give access to any sort of administrative function. Don't worry about changing your passwords frequently. It's much, much better to create long, strong passwords that you can remember than to keep changing passwords that you don't remember. But do change your password if somewhere gets hacked. Even if they say it wasn't breached, if you care about that service, then change the password. And don't tell anyone your passwords, pretty obvious, or the methods like we've gone through here. Maybe you always add ones at the end for padding. Don't tell people those methods. And don't write down your passwords unless they are securely locked away somewhere. And then there's a problem of security questions. Security questions like, what is your mother's maiden name? What was your first pet? These are highly dangerous. Many of the answers can be found out by using an internet search or simply by guessing. I worked on a banking system that will remain nameless, whose security reset question to reset the password was, what is your favorite color? I mean, come on. We know the most popular colours in the world. We know that blue is popular. We know that red is. We know that green is. Plus, this system allowed you to try as many times as you liked. So you don't need to crack the password. You're cracking the security question. The security question is effectively exactly the same as the password in this case. And in this case, it meant anyone's account was accessible. I had to get that emergency changed once I spotted it. The point being, these security questions need to be as secure as the password. So don't use security questions if you can avoid it. If you do have to enter a security answer to a security question, then use another strong password and just store the question and answer in your password manager so you know how to respond to it. If you just have your mother's maiden name as Smith, that's just the same as having Smith as a password, which is terrible. If you want to be super cryptic and have a very, very sensitive password that you store in your password manager, you can split it up and make it non-obvious what it is, just in case someone does crack your password manager. Use an email address that you trust is secure. If your email provider is hacked, all your passwords associated with it could also be too. Your email account is often a single point of security failure. You should consider changing usernames that give information away, because that isn't necessarily a good idea. So for example, if you have something like admin or root, you might think about changing those. When it comes to your passwords, prioritize the accounts that are most important to you, and make sure they have the strongest passwords and or multi-factor authentication. Forget about the things that you don't care about. Prioritize the accounts and things that you do care about. If it's possible with the services that you use, set up notifications and alerts. So for example, you get sent an email when your account is accessed or funds are transferred. Set up notifications if you can. If possible, set a lockout after a given number of failed attempts, and then that maybe resets itself, say after 10 minutes. This will delay someone being able to try and crack a system online. And remember, always remember, keep a backup of your password manager's database. You will be very sad if you lose your passwords.
So that's all for topic password managers, and the next topic is multi-factor authentication, soft tokens, Google authentication, and OT will be discussed to our partner next.